Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. Today is a press conference with some updates on the January storm incident. What we're going to do is I'm going to introduce the first speaker, and then they will all just walk up. I'm not going to come back and forth and introduce, and then I will come back and we will take questions. So today we're going to kick off the conference with Kevin Taylor, the Deputy Fire Chief for Montecito Fire Protection District. Deputy Chief.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. Kevin Taylor, Division Chief, Montecito Fire Department, and one of the Unified Incident Commanders for this weather event. Tomorrow, we will transition this incident to Emergency Operations Center Director and Assistant Santa Barbara County Executive Officer Matt Pontus. I want to assure the community that Montecito Fire Department will remain actively engaged in the facilitation and coordination of infrastructure restoration so that we can begin the repopulation process. In addition, I want you to know that the fire department is fully staffed and has been handling our normal day-to-day calls for service since Wednesday of last week. This morning, we got our first look at the updated strategic storm response plan developed by Cal Fire Incident Management Team 3 and other local agencies. This evidence-based decision support tool will help us manage our preparation and response to debris flow and flooding events for the remainder of the winter and the next several years. I would like to thank Cal Fire Incident Management Team 3 and their incident commander, Billy C., for their great work supporting all of the search and rescue efforts in Montecito. I would also like to thank our friends and partners from the Santa Barbara County Fire Department, Santa Barbara City Fire Department, Carpinteria Summerlin Fire Protection District, Santa Maria Fire Department, Vandenberg Air Force Base Fire Department, and the Lompoc Fire Department. All of those departments pre-deployed resources alongside Montecito Fire Department to the South Coast on Monday before the storm, and they continue to work as we speak. We would also like to thank the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office, the Flood Control District, and the Office of Emergency Management for their efforts that help facilitate our response to this emergency. Most importantly, I would like to offer our heartfelt condolences to the friends and families of the 21 community members that we lost and the 2 that are still missing. Finally, thank you to our community for their assistance, cooperation, and support. As I've mentioned, repopulation is our current priority, and we continue to work in partnership with the Sheriff's Office, public and private utilities, and county roads to make this happen as soon as possible. You'll hear more from the speakers following on this topic. We want you to get to your homes, back to work, and to reopen your businesses as soon as it's safe. We want to return our community to normal. We will do all these things because together we are Montecito strong. Thank you. Kevin Taylor, Taylor.
Robert Lewin, Director of the Office of Emergency Management. First, let me say thank you on behalf of the County Executive Officer, Ms. Miyasato, and her Assistant Executive Officers, Matt Pontus and Terry Nisich. They are so appreciative of what Team 3 did. The team that came in here provided us with the strength that only a CAL FIRE Incident Management team can do, and to them we are so appreciative. I also, just on a personal note, want to tell you that the incident commanders that were working here and 2 that will continue to work here are some of the finest leaders that I've ever met in my career. That includes the incident commander of Team 3, Billy C., and Division Chief that you just heard from, Kevin Taylor, and Commander Kelly Moore from the Sheriff's Office. Under very difficult circumstances, they never shied away from their responsibilities, and I know that they will continue to partner until Montecito is strong. The Emergency Operations Center will continue to run at a highest level, a level 3 activation, until we get people home. We are partnered with FEMA and we're partnered with Cal OES. Those two agencies are bringing all they can to bear to help us out, and we appreciate their support. We now are on the edge of pivoting towards recovery. Recovery is a process that involves making a town a new normal. It's making that community what it can be so that people can go back and find that new normal when schools are open, when businesses are open, and when people are going to their home and they're sleeping well. That's our objective. Some people, unfortunately, have had will have no homes to go to. Some will have damaged homes to go to. And our promise from the county is to do everything we can to make those people as able as possible to rebuild their lives and become survivors of this disaster. So let me tell you about how that works. The utilities that are all involved in this process and who've worked 24/7 are all on track to be able to put the important utilities back in service by January 31st. There's some areas that had great destruction in the water courses. Those areas will be later, but for the most part, the community will begin that normal period soon after those utilities are in place. Let me give some details. The Southern California Edison, SCE, has done an amazing job of putting back their system. And every day they restore power to many, many areas. And they have assured me that they, too, are on track to provide service to the areas that were not destroyed so that folks can have power when they return home. Southern California Gas, another important agency that has been out there working to make sure that the distribution system is in place. Already, many people have gas to their areas, and as soon as those people occupy those homes, they're going to be able to call the gas company, and the gas company will send a service rep to every one of those addresses, and they will light their pilots and get that energy going. But even if Southern California Gas doesn't get all the power on immediately, all the gas on to those homes, we're going to get people home even if that's not the case. Wait for a helicopter here. We're not going to wait to get people home because they don't have natural gas. We're going to give them that option. So if we have all the utilities in place but that, we're going to get folks home so that they can get home. It may have a cold shower, but that'll be okay, won't it? Montecito Water District. Amazing what they have done. Their system had huge amounts of destruction. The pipeline between Jameson Reservoir and the community was severed in two places, and there was other problems where the system had settled. Folks from San Luis Obispo County and San Luis Obispo City engineers came in, took that project on, ordered contractors, and they are staying up there 24 hours a day in 30-degree temperature. We did get them a trailer, but they're camping out there until this is done. The pipelines that supply the reservoirs, called high lines, those pipes were all broken at every water course. Those pipes, 4 of the 6 have been temporarily replaced, and the other 2 already have permanent fixes. They're supplying water to the critical reservoirs. The water mains are all being checked and replaced and fixed every day, and we're confident that they too will be in place by the 31st. The treatment facility is already able to produce some water that doesn't need a boil order, and they continue to treat that water where they can, and they're now beginning the high chlorination process to make sure the reservoirs and the pipes are going to be disinfected. This will impact people. That water will be highly chlorinated, and it can cause rashes and other issues, but we've got to do it so that the water is safe. That's our number one priority, is to make sure that folks have safe water. The Montecito Sanitary District. Incredible effort that they are doing. The good news is that the storm did not damage their treatment facility. It is fully functional, and never during the course of this whole event did they ever have a discharge that was out of compliance. The sewer lines are in need of cleaning out. They're full of mud, but they are taking care of that, and they're pulling out all the mud and they're vacuuming it out, and it's a big deal. It's a lot of work, but they work on it 24 hours a day. our building inspectors. They are following on the heels of the CAL FIRE inspection team, and they're looking at every structure, and they're determining whether that building is habitable or not. Already they have gone to 200 of the 300 or so homes that need to be inspected. As Chief Taylor talked about, we got to prepare for the next storm. We've already done that. He's already outlined to you the operational planning that's gone on. Well, let me tell you about the preparatory planning that's going to go on. Last night we had our first meeting with the rough data that has been provided us by the Forest Service Burn Area Emergency Response Team, the CAL FIRE Watershed Emergency Response Team, the California Geological Survey, and the Department of Water Resources scientists. And they have already given us our first look at a map that will highlight the high energy areas and the low energy areas of where a water course could go in the event of a storm. We have a lot of work to do on this. We have new thresholds for storms prediction that we're going to have to look at. The storm taught us a lot, but it also changed the water courses. And all this has to be evaluated so that we can present to you in a couple of days what that new risk areas are and how we're going to handle notifying the public when possible, when we have warning, and also how to make sure that people have their own awareness so they can take care of themselves. Let me take a pause for a moment about utilities and talk about the Red Cross. The Red Cross has been slugging it out with all of us since December 4th when this event occurred and Ventura County asked us to open a shelter in this county. Red Cross stood up. The reason Red Cross is notable to be mentioned is that while we all, as public servants, are working, we're getting a paycheck. But most folks that work for Red Cross only do it because they get to feel like they're serving their community. They are volunteers. These volunteers, you would never know they're volunteers because they are committed as such as we are. It's amazing. No one should ever doubt the commitment that Red Cross has or the amazing resources that they bring to bear both in the field and also in their shelters. There's two places I want to mention if people want to help out. We have a need to be able to get people immediately into some housing. If you want to make a donation to the Santa Barbara Foundation, and they have a fund that's being able to provide funds so that we can get these folks that don't have homes in the temporary way into some kind of sheltering. It's only a temporary program, but it's one we need to do to make their lives on the course for being better. Thank you. Robert Lewin, Lewin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Bill Brown. I'm the Sheriff Coroner for Santa Barbara County. Thank you for being here today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the bittersweet news yesterday of our finding one additional missing person. Just before 10 a.m., a search and rescue human remains detection dog team located the body of 28-year-old Fabiola Benitez Calderon. And while we are relieved that she was found and that her family now has closure, we are also deeply saddened for the suffering that this family and many others have gone through. The Benitez family in particular is one of several that has lost multiple family members. Not only Fabiola, but also her 10-year-old son Jonathan, who was also killed, as well as Jonathan's cousin, 3-year-old Kaylee Benitez, and her mother, 27-year-old Marilyn Ramos. This family has lost so much, and we wish them our best as they face the difficult journey of trying to move forward without their loved ones. The discovery of Fabiola Benitez brings the number of fatal casualties from this incident to 21, and we still have 2 people who we are desperately trying to find. They are 2-year-old Lydia Sutetepa and 17-year-old John Jack Canton. I can't convey to the public enough the intensity, the sense of urgency, and the determination of everyone who has been involved in this search effort, which is still going on this afternoon as we speak. There are 20 human remain detection dog teams from throughout the state and from our area working together with our search and rescue team and firefighters to search areas within the Montecito Creek watercourse where the two missing victims originated, and they have been checking that area all weekend. They have been searching and researching that area. And because the dogs are trained differently, they are being rotated in order to approach the search from as many different angles as possible. Today, fire personnel who worked alongside the dog teams helped us gingerly sort through debris and clear some of the mud from the piles of debris that were in effect so that a more thorough search could be done. And we can't stress enough that this work is very difficult. Our teams have searched debris piles, some of which have been 20 feet high and 40 feet wide. The dogs and the handlers have worked very hard. They are extremely tenacious. Some have ventured into the mud that was up to their waist. As I mentioned, the areas that this new set of dog teams looked at over the last day and yesterday and today, the entire area has been searched and researched at least 3 times. And the areas were searched previously 4 to 5 times before that. And while they've covered a lot of ground and are continuing to re-examine key locations, there are still some areas that we have not been able to obtain access to, and they still need to be searched. There are still other areas where the conditions are not good for the search, and we're going to have to wait for some ground to dry out before bringing the dog teams back in to look in the future. Our searching is going to take a different course. We are still going to target some of those areas that I mentioned, but we are going to enter a new phase of the search, and that is involving the repopulation of that watercourse in that area. And as that area gets repopulated, and as people move back into that area, and as the debris on the private property in particular gets removed, in essence, we will exponentially expand the number of people who are searching for our 2 remaining victims. It's very possible that they could be underneath a significant amount of mud that is drying and ultimately has to be removed, and it will be during that process that the search will continue. And it is still also very possible that 1 or more of them could have been swept out to sea. We are doing all we can, continuing to do all we can to search areas that they might still be remaining in. But for the most part, we have done everything we can do for the accessible areas. So again, I ask all of you who are going to be involved in the recovery and the rebuilding effort to please be vigilant and to help us as we continue to look for these 2 people. The question has been asked, where did people originate from? The fatal casualties, where did they originate from and where were they recovered? So we have prepared a map which shows where the victims who are confirmed fatalities and the 2 that are still missing and where they originated from. And there are basically 3 watercourses that were hit by this event. The Montecito watercourse, which is here on the left-hand side, was by far struck the hardest and was the most violent in the mud and the water slide that occurred. In the center is the watercourse that follows along the San Isidro Creek, and over here on the end is the watercourse that follows the Ramiro Creek. We had 1 person that lost their life adjacent to the Ramiro Creek. We had a group of 4 people here that lost their lives adjacent to the San Isidro Creek, and then the remainder are here in the Montecito Creek watercourse. We've been asked, where do these locations line up with where our evacuation areas And we've put Valley Road on this map. And as you can see from the map, we had 4 persons who originated in the mandatory evacuation area, all of them deceased. We have had 12 persons who were actually right on the border. The homes were actually on East Valley Road. 11 of those are confirmed deceased, and 1 is missing. And we had a total of 7 people below East Valley Road, 6 of whom are confirmed deceased, and 1 is still missing. So the totals, again, are 21 confirmed deceased and 2 that remain missing. We know that many Montecito residents have been out of their homes for a long time, and we are working diligently to try to repopulate that area. That process of getting you back into your homes is called repopulation in the parlance of emergency management. As we do that, we have an area that has been essentially sealed off with a perimeter and is filled with law enforcement officers from our agency, from our county, and mutual aid officers from all across the Southern California region. And we know that you've been out of your homes for a couple of weeks now. Many of you are going on for 2 weeks. And we have done hundreds of escorts to try to get people in who needed to get back into their homes for an important reason or another. We encourage you to continue to call us if you have a need to get in there that is extenuating or emergent in nature, but if it is not absolutely necessary, we ask you to refrain from doing that for the time being. And we want to thank all the residents of Montecito who have been extremely cooperative with us in this venture and have shown a tremendous amount of appreciation to law enforcement conducting these escorts in and out of the area. And again, we couldn't provide that level of service without the multitude of people who are here from Los Angeles County, from Tulare, from Madera, and from San Luis, just to name a few. They are assisting our deputies not only with those escorts, but also with the security patrols that are being conducted in that area. And we want to assure you, if you're out of the area, that we have a very strong law enforcement presence in the evacuated areas, which we believe is very important to deter crime and keep people out of the area who have no real business being there. And we've had several instances of people who were contacted by law enforcement in the evacuation zone, and when it was determined that they did not have a legitimate reason for being there, they were escorted out and they were cited under 409.5 of the Penal Code, a misdemeanor, which makes it against the law to enter that area without legitimate business. So I want to turn finally to the repopulation efforts, because that's the number one question we keep getting asked. When can we get back into our homes? And we are very steadfast in our original mission to this community to return it to, as much as possible, a state of normalcy and as completely as possible. There's very extensive planning that is underway, and we are going to begin the repopulation process very soon. We are going to focus primarily on looking at when we have the restoration of the primary utilities and when our access issues are being solved. And one of those big access issues has been solved, and you're going to hear about that in a moment. But we are working during this current time, before we can bring anybody that's a resident back into the community, to work on bringing in business owners, bringing in people who are affiliated with the schools in Montecito and the post office, to try to make sure that when the time is right and we can open the doors, in essence, that we have those schools, the businesses, and that post office up and running. Significant progress is being made. You heard that the utilities are estimated to be, the primary utilities, up and running by the 31st, and we are making that date, the 31st, as the target upon which we will, no later than that time, begin the repopulation process in Montecito. Now, I want to be very clear that as we begin that repopulation process, you can expect a number of things. Number one, you can expect that process to be incremental. We cannot bring everybody back in at once, just based on the size of the roadways and based on the type of roadways and based on the number of people who are going to go in there. So it'll be an incremental process. And we will have more information for you later this week in terms of how we're going to go about and do that. Priority is going to be given to those persons whose homes were severely damaged or destroyed and yet still accessible in the damaged areas, so that they can go in and retrieve some, if not all, of their valuables. You can expect that once the process begins, at the beginning stages, it will be for residents only, residents with some form of identification to tie them into the Montecito community. And I've said before that we don't want to evacuate, put people back into an evacuated area if we're having another storm event that's about to occur. But fortunately, our weather forecasts are very promising at this point in the near future, and we hope that that will not be an issue. I want to just thank the members of my team who are working very diligently on developing this plan. I want to thank also incident management team from CAL FIRE for the tremendous job that they've done as we transition over to an endeavor that will be led by the County of Santa Barbara tomorrow. And then lastly, I want to thank the members of the Montecito, Summerland, and Carpinteria communities in particular, but especially those, but all of the members of Santa Barbara County. Everyone who lives in this county has been tremendous in their exhibition and expression of cooperation, of patience, of understanding and support. And we thank you for that, and it is a privilege for us to protect and serve you. Thank you.
I'm District Attorney Joyce Studley, District Attorney of Santa Barbara County. Like all of you, it was impossible to hear the sheriff's words about the victims without feeling your heart break for the victims, their loved ones, and the first responders. So we move forward. As your district attorney, I want to briefly talk to you today about 3 disaster-related crimes: price gouging, entering areas closed because of a disaster, and fraud related to FEMA. 1, price gouging. It is generally when someone charges someone 10% above what was a pre-disaster price. Now, the relevant date for pre- and post-disaster pricing is the date of the proclamation/declaration from the county, state, or federal government. Now, price gouging is not only unlawful, but it is also despicable, given the tragedies and the disasters that have fallen upon this county. If you'd like to report potential price gouging, you may do so by filling out a district attorney consumer complaint. Now, you can find that form in English or in Spanish on our website, the County of Santa Barbara District Attorney webpage, www.countyofsb.org/DA, and a link can also be found right on the County of Santa Barbara 2018 January storm page. Go to either one of those sites, fill out that form, and law enforcement will be looking into those claims. Entering areas because of a disaster is a violation, as the sheriff just told you, of Penal Code Section 409.5. Don't do it. If you do that, and if you're one of those people that got a citation, you can be charged with a misdemeanor, and you can spend up to 6 months in county jail and or pay a fine of $1,000. If you're not authorized to be in those areas, don't go there. Third, FEMA. Now that FEMA has come to Santa Barbara County, it's important to understand that what also follows those FEMA efforts, which are extraordinary, are people who will impersonate FEMA in order to commit identity theft. So this is what I need you to do. First of all, no FEMA inspector will come to your home unless you've filled out a form. So if you haven't filled out a form on their website and someone comes to your house and says they're from FEMA, close the door. Call your law enforcement. Second, if you have filled out a form and they come to your home, ask for their photo identification before you do anything else. If they don't have a photo identification, close the door and call your local law enforcement agency. And finally, under no circumstances, but they've actually done this, the impersonators have actually done this, they will ask you for money to begin your claim. FEMA will never ask you for money. On behalf of your district attorney's office and all law enforcement officers in Santa Barbara County, we want to keep you safe throughout this disaster and after. Thank you. Studley, D-U-D-L-E-Y.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Chalk. I'm the District 5 Maintenance Manager for the South Region of Caltrans. But first of all, I would like to express the thoughts and prayers from our entire family at Caltrans to the families of those who have lost loved ones in this terrible tragedy. At noon today, Caltrans, working closely with the California Highway Patrol, reopened all lanes of north and southbound Highway 101 through the Carpinteria, Montecito, Summerlin, and Santa Barbara areas. This was the culmination of an extraordinary amount of hard work by maintenance forces, Jason Klein's construction team, and contractors working around the clock to achieve this goal. We are extremely proud of those efforts and hope that this accomplishment serves as an important step in the recovery of our community and helps to reestablish the continuity of commerce and travel along this vital route. Today's reopening could not have happened without the tremendous cooperation and support of our partner agencies under the direction of Incident Command and the men and women of the Santa Barbara County EOC. These dedicated people serving our community are nothing short of amazing. And they continue to work tirelessly to restore services and infrastructure to Montecito, all while preparing for the next crisis. And there is much work to do. Caltrans remains dedicated to seeing this incident through. We will, as we always have, remain prepared, vigilant, and engaged. To my maintenance crews, I am so proud of your response under these extremely difficult conditions. We will celebrate this accomplishment tonight, and then we'll get back after it tomorrow. So celebrate responsibly. Thank you. Over 100,000 cubic yards of material was removed from Highway 101. CHALK.
Good afternoon. I'm Cindy Ponce, CINDYPONTES, the Santa Barbara, California Highway Patrol Captain. We are very pleased that the 101 is open now. This will allow for some normalcy to return to people's daily routines. The essential employees, escorts, and all the other escorts that we were doing will now discontinue. We encourage everyone to carpool or to utilize public transportation, as the 101 will be heavily impacted by truck traffic. Please drive with caution around these trucks as they are working around the clock to clear the debris basins before our next storms. If you choose to drive your own vehicle, please give yourself extra time as your commute will be delayed due to the heavy truck traffic in this area. Caltrans and their contract companies worked diligently around the clock to open the 101 earlier than anticipated. This was a great show of teamwork, and they did an excellent job. The CHP is still currently closing the Sheffield, San Ysidro, and Olive Mill off-ramps in both directions on the 101, along with Hermosillo off the northbound, and Evans on-ramp to the northbound 101. We still have surface street closures in place and are keeping people out of the impacted area. Please do not come to this area. We will not allow you in, and it will delay the work of the crews that are working to get people back into their homes as quickly as possible, and we don't want to delay that work. We want to continue to thank the community for their patience and the support that they've provided us during this very difficult time. This community is extremely resilient. We do have a long road ahead of us, and I know we will persevere and we will get through this. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Charity Dean. I'm the Santa Barbara County Public Health Officer. First name is Charity. Last name is Dean, Dean. The Public Health Department has sent out some new information today about health effects related to cleanup. The incident management team tested mud in 10 different locations in Montecito in these areas in an effort to use the best protective equipment and decontamination procedures for their crews. They shared this information with us on January 18th, and in an effort to protect all workers in the area, including those who will be returning home, the Public Health Department wants people to know how they can protect themselves. 5 substances were tested for: bacteria, TPH, asbestos, PCBs, or polychlorinated biphenyls, and heavy metals. Of those substances tested for, there were 2 that could have a health effect on people with extended exposures, and that is bacteria and TPH, or gasoline, diesel, motor oil. These were detected in the mud which was taken from 10 different sites. And the important message for people who will be working in the mudslide debris, particularly around homes, is to be aware of certain health conditions, rashes. The kind of rash that you could get from extended exposure to gasoline or motor oil or bacteria could be red, it could be expanding. If it begins to look infected, you need to seek medical attention. And we have seen some of these rashes, and so we want people to be aware. Another issue could be wound infections. There's lots of debris. Even small scratches and scrapes could become infected when you're working in mud conditions that contain levels of fecal bacteria. So people should be alert from head to toe of any abrasions or scratches they have at the end of the day. And the third is GI illness. With high levels of fecal coliform or Enterococcus or E. coli in the soil, we know that there is a potential for this to be ingested and can cause a gastrointestinal illness, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. If you've been working and exposed for extended periods and you develop these symptoms, please seek medical care. We are urging people to make sure they're up to date on their tetanus vaccine before going back into these areas. If you have not been vaccinated against tetanus in the past 10 years, now's the time to get it. There are certain protective measures that people can take to use the right equipment when they're working in these areas, and the Public Health Department released information on that today. The summary is long pants, waterproof boots, gloves, eye protection if you're going to be working in mud that could get into your eyes. Be aware that the mud, especially around households where a sewage system could have been damaged, could contain high levels of fecal coliform. Don't eat or drink in the work areas. Wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water. Using these common sense protections will help everyone stay safe. The Public Health Department is committed to continuing messaging to the public on health effects they should know about and how they can protect themselves as they enter these areas and begin the difficult task of cleanup. Thank you.
We're going to take a few questions. First, I want to make a quick announcement. There is a community meeting tomorrow at 4 p.m. at La Cumbre Junior High School. 2255 Modoc Road. The organizations and agencies represented here today, plus the utility representatives, will be there. Please attend if you can. We'll also be broadcasting that in the various ways that you've been receiving these press conferences and the previous community meetings. I also quickly, before we do Q&A, wanted to recognize 1st District Supervisor Das Williams. Thank you, Supervisor, for being here. So with that, we'll take a few questions and have you guys come closer. Does anyone have a question? You guys were good. We don't have questions. And with that, going once, going twice, thank you so much for being here. And again, we'll see you at the community meeting tomorrow. Thank you.